Hey guys, so it's been probably about 3 or 4 years since y'all seen this engine, and it's a good running engine. It smokes, not super bad, but bad enough it needs re-ringed in order to use it for something, and not having to put oil in it every 30-40 minutes. But it's got this type of muffler on it. Looks like it's been look like somebody's tried to take it off before, so I put some PB Blaster on it. The other thing with this engine is originally on a generator apparently. You see this tapered shaft, so I'm hoping that I can swap out this crankshaft I got here. This is out of the 8 horsepower that threw a rod and flipped, if you remember that. And other than the end being beat up, it's still good. Like, it wasn't like an low oil problem, and the rod didn't seize on there. It threw because of another issue. But a couple other things about this engine I'm curious about is apparently it threw a rod at some point through the block. You can tell this block's been patched, and you can see it, it's obviously been apart with silicone put back on it. Nothing wrong with that. So I figure this engine was ran low on oil. Someone tore it apart and just replaced the rod. So I'm guessing, the rings are probably shot, or the cylinder could be scored up, but we'll see. It does have the low oil shut off, but maybe it didn't work or something, or it was unhooked. And this oil plug over here is broke, so maybe that's where the oil leak was at. Don't know. So I want to pop the head off and the flywheel cover first and just kind of see what's going on in here. I don't know if I mentioned or not, this is a model 19, 8 horsepower, and it was made in 93. It does have a cast iron sleeve. You can see you can see the sleeve in there. Cylinder looks really good, what I can see. There's a few real light scores, might just be oil marks. And real light score. So the cylinder looks good. I checked the play in the valve guides, and the intake valve's real good. I can't even hardly move it. The exhaust one does have just a little bit of play. Not real bad. So, rings, valve job, and hopefully that's all it's going to take. And hopefully this crankshaft will interchange. So this came out of a dual bearing crank engine. I don't know what this one is, so we'll know until we dig a little deeper out. Also wanted to mention it's complete, other than a missing governor spring. This is a brand new aftermarket style carburetor on it. I do have the original one somewhere for this, so I'm going to take the carburetor off camera. I figure I'm going to have a little issue with that rusted muffler there. And we'll get the oil draining out. Also wanted to mention, whenever you see oil residue around like where the head gasket goes, it's usually a pretty good sign that the gasket was leaking. So we'll probably have to surface the deck and the head just a little bit to get that true. And the head gasket don't look too bad, so we might just either reuse it or just see if I got another one we can throw in it. Usually that type reusable for a few times anyway. The new type is not. You can also see like right here where it was probably leaking down through there. So, alright, let me take some stuff off camera real quick. And we'll get the nasty oil draining out of it. I popped the flywheel off. So far everything's coming apart pretty good. The recoil starter did decide to fall apart, but no big deal. We put it back together. So yeah, I'm going to drain the oil out, then we'll pop the cover off on camera, probably on time lapse. I got to clean this up first to help keep from tearing the seal up, because I don't think I got another seal in stock now that I think about it. So, a couple of notes here. First of all, this engine is nasty inside. This was laying right here inside. And first thing I noticed, obviously it's not an IC block because they don't say it on the block. I figured being a cast iron sleeve, it would have the ball bearing on both sides, and they don't have it on either side. So this crank may not work. I don't know if this part is the same size or not. It looks like it. Probably is. The bearing just slides up on there because the gear comes off. So it'll probably work as long as the back side's the same, which again it should be. So hopefully we can make it work. We'll just have to take that bearing off. Not that big of a deal. So remember I told you the block has been passed over because apparently it threw a rod. Well, it was done right. It was welded. So someone, looks like they pieced it back together or just welded the seams. It might have just hit it and just kind of cracked it or something too. So it looked like it was done right. Never seen any signs of leaking or anything. So like I said, it may have been welded from the inside, what it looks like. And that's probably just some type of like Bondo or something on the outside. Perfectly fine with me. I would have done the same. It appears to be an aftermarket rod, which again is fine with me. Don't look like the locking tabs were locked all the way. Alright, so we get the crank out and the rod and piston out. Took the top compression ring off. We got a 32 thousandth ring gap, so it's a little excessive. I've seen worse, so it's definitely the rings are wore. So since this is cast iron bore, we'll be honing it and try to true it up a little bit, and then we'll test fit some new rings. Just 2 bolts hold this in, and I got some 5 horsepower IC blocks that have the plate. So for right now, I'm just going to take it off with one of them and put it on there and just seal it up. With that one, I'm pretty sure that piece is broke off that, and it probably don't work anyway, so I'm not that worried about it. Alright, so I just discovered what this piece is. It's off the governor arm here. That's what comes in contact with the weights on there, I'm pretty sure. So that definitely is broke off. So I like to see if I have another one of these, because I like to put together with the governor working. So I gotta get the valves out and do a couple things off camera. Probably not gonna show none of the valve job on camera, just to speed up the video. So let me clean some stuff up and check a few things and go from there. And I did test fit the new crank, or the old crank, and it will fit in there. So should be good to go on the crank swap. So I just took the valves out, and I rarely ever show it on camera because it's so hard to show everything where it's such a crowded area. So I figured I showed it in other videos, but so you use a valve spring compressor tool to compress the spring, and you get this little retainer clip. This is the intake valve, and the valve stem goes in here and it catches. But the valve stem goes through here and catches on the center part of that. And that's what holds the spring on there when you compress it. You lift that out like that. So again, you compress the spring with the tool, slide the valve through. This retainer goes in here, and you get these 2 little keepers that are tapered. The smaller end points towards the head of the valve, and these go up just like this, and it gets caught by that, and the spring tension will hold it together. I never show it all because it's really hard to do, and it's just almost impossible to show on camera. Like, this took almost 2 minutes to explain it. It took probably 15 minutes to actually do it on camera. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail to bore you. I'm going to hone the cylinder. I'm using a 3-stone hone. I did put WD-40, that's what that is. I didn't have a spray bottle. But you want to put a little WD-40 or diesel fuel or kerosene, anything like that. The key is consistency, trying to maintain the same speed, going up and down the same speed on the drill. You want to do this until you get an even crisscross pattern on it, which we'll look at after I get done. We're going to go ahead and stop this on camera because it can take several minutes to do this. this is probably about midways into honing, which you can see the crosshatch, which is like the pattern of that. If you see, it's supposed to crisscross at like a 45. It's supposed to crisscross at like a 45-degree angle, like this. So I'm just a little bit lower than that, so I need to speed up the up and down part. But if you look, it's not true all the way around yet. You can see places where the hone hasn't touched yet. So that's a sign that you need to go a little bit more with it. Alright, I think I reached a stopping point on honing. You still see a few light spots that hasn't been really touched too much, but for the most part, the whole cylinders came in. So that's pretty much what you want. And yes, you are opening it up a little bit more, and sometimes it's better just to have a truer surface so the rings can seal, because as long as you're getting, the ring itself to seal, the ring gap isn't quite as critical as it would be normally. Not saying you want a big gap, but you don't want a ring gap to exceed 10 thousandths on a rebuild like this. If it does, then it really needs to be bored out, and it's recommended no more than 10 thousandths of a ring gap on rebuilds, but it also specifies for small engines not to exceed 30 thousandths of a ring gap, which is usually like this was 32 thousandths when I tore it apart. So that's, it's getting back to where it would have been, but I generally like to keep it 5 to 10 thousandths if possible. So the ring gap is a very tight 8 thousandths, so we're pretty good on that. That's the top compression round. I'm going to check the other rings too just to make sure, and go from there. Alright, so I got everything ready to assemble. I'm just going to do a time lapse, speed up the video. There's more detailed videos of engine rebuilds if you need more of a step-by-step. Understand if you don't like a video like this, and I'm probably just going to go ahead and put this back in because apparently there's not something missing off of it. I'm going to clean it up a little bit first, just so I don't have to rob a part off of another engine. I did clean out the cylinder with a rag with the carburetor cleaner on it, and cleaned it until it wiped clean. So it should be good to go. And this is the new crank. I had to clean up this end and pop a bearing off, but should be good to go. Get ready to start the time lapse, and remembered something. I was going to go ahead and weld this piece. I'm going to take this out and weld it out of the block. And I just seen two other things I wanted to note on the video. This engine definitely threw a rod, which we already knew because that side's been patched. As you can see where the rod or something hit up here. And actually, it looks like the cylinder sleeve is bent in just the tiniest bit, and probably not an issue because just a skirt of the piston comes down that far, and I don't even see a wear place on it from that. That's the other side there. Piston's got real light scores. Can't really feel it with the fingernails, so it should be good. And this piece right here is bent a little bit, which is not critical. So I just wanted to note that. So I gotta weld this real quick. So I'll do that off camera, then we'll look at the time lapse of the assembly. That cylinder looks pretty good, what I can see. Alright, so I got that welded back together. Hopefully I got a good enough weld. It was really hard to get to. I had it in the vise, but it's not exactly straight, but it don't really matter where it's adjustable anyway. So it looks like to me it's going to come in pretty good contact. So let's hope that'll work. Get you on time lapse. So a little break from the time lapse. I had a little issue I discovered with the rod and crankshaft. This crankshaft from the engine that did the flip, the journals wore down a little bit more than the one that came out of this. But this is the only crankshaft I got that's not a generator shaft, so it has a little bit of play in it. But some of that's just the crankshaft moving there. But I think it'll be alright. You may hear just a slight noise from the rod. I was going to put a new rod in it, but the rod itself's not really worn too much. You can see a little bit of wear, but that's not the problem. So I just decided to go with it. It should be alright. Alright, get the head surfaced. It was really bad. It was like this all the way through here, and finally got it worked in enough where it'll seal. And I didn't do the deck, because usually the head's what's the worst. So I figure this is probably what happened on this engine. I keep thinking about it as I go. So the engine got ran low on oil. It probably made it overheat, so it warped the head. Threw a rod. And then, obviously when it gets ran low on oil, it pretty much burns the rings out, like wears them out so fast, it like wears them out faster. And so obviously it was a generator engine, so it was probably in the middle of a power outage or something, and someone went to like Snapper or somewhere and got the rod, or just happened to have it but didn't have the gaskets and stuff, and just did the rod, the main thing that was wrong, just to get it up and going again. Then they maybe tore it down or something later on, which would explain why the generator part's missing. I also want to note I did a shorts video, which I'm trying to do from time to time, going to how the old compression release system works on these older engines, and briefly explain it here. So there's the exhaust stroke, the intake, then this would be the compression stroke. On most engines, the intake valve would be completely closed at this point. Right, this one is still open. Piston coming up on compression, still slightly open. Still slightly open. Don't completely close until it gets all the way up to the top, then it closes. That's how the compression release works on these old engines. So a simple trick to get more compression, but they're harder to start because of more compression, is just open up the clearance on the intake valve. Like it's got to be almost double what it's set at the factory, and that'll really boost the compression up. That should be done before you try to like surface the head to get the compression up from the cylinder head. That's the first thing to do, is that valve adjustment. a lot harder to start, but the end result will be a lot more compression. Alright, so we got the oil in it. I just sprayed a little carburetor cleaner in there and it took right off on that, so let's see what's going to happen. Adjust it out a little. I forgot about that grommet being loose one there. I'll have to try to fix that one day. Just had a little bit of smoke there at first, and that was probably just oil burn off the cylinder and everything, and doing a lot better than that other 8 horsepower we rebuilt the other day. So we'll get it running again tomorrow probably, and get it broke in a little bit better and everything. But so far so good. I don't hear no rod knock either. I was concerned about that.